Kirby Yates and David Robertson dominated last year in their first year with the Rangers, but if Texas can only bring back one of them, which one should it be? We're talking about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into David Robertson versus Kirby Yates, what they do well, why the Rangers can probably only afford to bring back one of them, and which one it should be. This episode is brought to you by the College Football Playoffs. The College Football Playoff is here, and you don't want to miss a moment of the action. The College Football Playoff, presented by Allstate, begins with 4 first-round games December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. And also, just while we're talking about the College Football Playoff and college football in general, the episode should be out today. The podcast, We're Not All Like This. I was a guest on it talking about my Texas Tech fandom with Ryan Nanny, the host. So go check that out if you want to hear me yap about college football. But this is not a College Football Playoff podcast or any kind of college football podcast. This is a Texas Rangers podcast. The Texas Rangers have done a lot this offseason, bringing back Nathan Eovaldi, signing one reliever, also making a big old trade for a Jake Burger. But the bullpen still has a lot of work left to be done. Obviously, the Rangers' 2 best relievers last year, Kirby Yates and David Robertson, are both free agents. Now, their third best, maybe you might feel differently, but I feel the Rangers' third best reliever, Jose Leclerc, is also a free agent. And the Rangers have several spots to fill in their bullpen. Now, they have about $20 to $25-ish million left to spend on free agents and the like. Most of that, if not, I feel pretty decently comfortably saying all of it, aside from the $800,000 or so of salary that Roki Sasaki would make if he decided to sign with the Texas Rangers, which again won't happen until after January 15th, so we've still got some time for that. But the offense seems to be mostly worked on. It seems like Jake Burger is going to be the only addition there. There's still quite a few spots in this bullpen, so $20 to $25-ish million to spend realistically, so they're still got some wiggle room before they're bumping up against the luxury tax, which they've said time and time again this year. It matters a lot getting back under that luxury tax, but $20 to $25 million to build a bullpen is a decent amount, but that probably only lets you get one of the top end guys. I think they need probably to sign 3 relievers at this point, maybe 2 if you're feeling really good about the guys that you sign. Say one of those spots is filled by a prospect stepping up, whether that's Mark Church, whether that's Emiliano Teodo, whether that's Skylar Hales or someone else. Say Jacob Webb is one of those high leverage relief spots. Maybe John Gray is one. I talked a lot about what it would mean to move John Gray to the pen on yesterday's show, so go check that out. Got really in depth there. But basically, it all boils down to the Rangers are only going to be able to bring back, it seems like, one of Kirby Yates or David Robertson, because their contract projections, according to MLB Trade Rumors, Yates is projected for 1 year, $14 million. Robertson is projected for 1 year, $11 million. Both of those projections by MLB Trade Rumors. But that's kind of where the Rangers are. I'd kind of like them to sign 3 relievers, even if, it ends up that Jacob Webb is a good leverage reliever. Even if the Rangers move John Gray to the pen, even if, say, Mark Church steps up and is a solid medium leverage reliever, there's still a lot of holes on this bullpen because as currently constructed, this is what Fangraphs projects the Rangers bullpen to look like next year. Right now, Jacob Webb is the closer. And then the guys behind him, Daniel Robert, Jacob Latz, Grant Anderson, Matt Festa, Mark Church, Walter Pennington, and Dane Dunning as the long man. That's not a whole lot of confidence. And Josh Boers is going to be back at some point next year, but it's kind of questionable as to how good he's going to be when he comes back and when he's even going to be back. He's going to miss at least the first 2 months of the season with shoulder surgery. He had to fix the issue that he had this year where he barely pitched, it felt like, this year. When he pitched, he was good, but he was barely healthy. I mean, 3 different stints on the IL with the same shoulder issue, 2 to 3 months on the IL. He might miss as much as half of the season, and who knows what exactly he'll look like when he comes back. So the Rangers need to, in my opinion, bring back one of Kirby Yates or David Robertson. Now let's look at what Kirby Yates did well. Why was he so special? What made him one of the best relievers in all of baseball last year? I'd say pretty comfortably the second best reliever in all of baseball. Shout out to former Ranger great Emmanuel Clase. It's fine. Kirby Yates did give up fewer runs in the playoffs than Emmanuel Clase. But the thing that Kirby Yates did incredibly well, pitching-wise, last year was everything. Honestly, it was everything outside of not walking people. You look at his baseball savant page, and almost everything is in the bright red. The only things that aren't are his fastball velocity. He averaged 93.2 miles per hour. That was in the 35th percentile. That's fine. That's never been his game. He's not a guy who throws 98, 99. He could still be very successful. The walk rate in the bottom 10% of baseball, that was not great. And its extension, the 15% of baseball, is still incredibly effective, incredibly deceptive. That splitter was about as nasty as it's ever been. Maybe even nastier than it's ever been, and hitters still can't tell the difference between his fastball and his splitter. They look so similar until they are right on you. That's why this was one of the best seasons, heck, maybe even the best season of Kirby Yates' career. I mean, you even look back to 2019, that was what was thought of as his best season. He had 101 strikeouts in nearly 61 innings, a 1.19 ERA, and 41 saves, finished 9th in Cy Young voting. That was his first All-Star season back in 2019 with the San Diego Padres. Kind of insane that he did all of that, a 1.19 ERA in the juiced ball season. He only allowed 2 home runs in 2019 when Danny Santana had, I believe, a 30-homer season. That's how juiced that ball was, and he only allowed 2 home runs that year. One of the things that he did well back then that he didn't do well this year is he limited walks. He had impeccable command. This year, didn't really do that as much, but you look at all these different numbers, the strikeout rate, the chase rate, limiting hard contact, the expected ERA, expected batting average from Kirby Yates last year was in the 100th percentile. 100th. There was nobody in the league better than Kirby Yates at limiting batters, hitting him hard, getting on base, scoring runs. Nobody better. That was a sensational all-time season, and for $4.5 million, when the Rangers were rumoredly in on Josh Hader, who got, let's just say generously, a lot more than $4.5 million for 1 year. But why would the Rangers not bring back Yates? Yates was one of the best relievers in baseball last year. I mean, heck, he was the 4th most valuable player by Baseball Reference for last year, behind only Corey Seager on the Rangers, I should say. Not in the whole sport. That'd be crazy. But only behind Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, and Wyatt Langford. Even ahead of guys like Nathaniel Lowe and Joshua Pookie H. Silver Slugger All-Star Hits Real Good Smith. That's how good Kirby Yates was. He was absolutely sensational. Now, the reasons to not bring him back are, well, he's going to be expensive for 1 year. $14 million is a lot to pay for a reliever. And while this season was amazing, sensational, the Rangers were so smart in spending on him. $4.5 million seemed like a decent chunk of change, coming off of an okay season with the Braves, but he missed, most of 2020, missed all of 2021, barely pitched in 2022 as well. So 2023 was kind of the first year of him coming back. He looked okay, but not anywhere near this level. Nowhere near this level. And maybe that one conversation with Nathan Eovaldi about how to level up his split game, make his splitter even better. Maybe that's what led to this. So maybe he can be convinced by Nathan Eovaldi to come back, but he's going to be 38 next year. It had been a long time since Yates had been anywhere near this dominant. That 2019 season, that was a long time ago. And the Rangers were not expecting, I don't think, this level of dominance. And there's a chance that he could fall off again. He's had 2 different Tommy John surgeries. He's heading into his age 38 season. But again, he's not a guy who's relied a whole lot on crazy velocity. He throws about 93. He could probably still throw about 93 for another several years. I don't anticipate him getting a multi-year deal. Maybe he will with some of the deals that other relievers are signing. But there's just a little bit of apprehension. Now, let's turn to David Robertson and talk about what's made him so great, why I am very confident, is going to be worth his contract, no matter what kind of contract he's signing next year, even in his age 40 season. Right after this. This show is brought to you by SelectQuote. The World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing: teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion of coverage since 1985. You invest so much of your time and take care of yourself and to be the healthiest, the best version of you. SelectQuote's exclusive policies can reward that. And these policies, they're more affordable than you think. You can get coverage for up to $1 million in as little as $20 a month. If you're in good health, they work with carriers to help you get same-day coverage up to $5 million, no medical exam required. Head to SelectQuote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/lockedon. That's SelectQuote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/lockedon. Now, we talked about what made Kirby Yates so good. I mean, he was good against all different types of hitters. The lefties, righties, didn't matter the situation. As a closer, he was just absolutely locked down. He had barely any bad games. He was so freaking consistent. But what makes David Robertson so good? Well, Robertson has been in the big leagues for now 16 seasons. 16 seasons. And for the last 3, he was really good with the Yankees for several seasons early on in his career. Then with the White Sox was solid there too, basically until 2019. He pitched with the Phillies then, 7 games there, got hurt, didn't play all of 2020. Came back with the Tampa Bay Rays in 2021, wasn't great there. But then since 2022, his age 37 season, he's kind of gone back and reinvented himself and been one of the most consistent relievers in all of baseball. Now, Robertson is probably never going to deliver a 1.12 ERA season like Kirby Yates. He's probably not going to have, the top batting average, expected batting average against, and top expected ERA in the league like Kirby Yates just did. But the thing about David Robertson that I loved, the reason I loved the signing from the second that the Rangers did it, not just because he went to Alabama, where I went my first couple of seasons of college, but because he does something that is very rare amongst relievers. He's consistent. You know exactly what you're getting with David Robertson. Over the last 3 seasons, basically since that reinvention, since he's gotten back and healthy, he's number 12 in FanGraphs WAR amongst relief pitchers, ahead of a lot more guys than you'd expect. Guys like Andres Munoz, Brian Abreu, guys like, Josh Hader, Kenley Jansen, Ryan Presley, all these guys who have been fantastic. Heck, even Pete Fairbanks. He's had significantly higher WAR the last 3 seasons than some of the guys who are considered pretty comfortably the best relievers or closers in the game. Every single year, you know exactly what you're getting with David Robertson. 2022, he had a 240 ERA, 58 games, 63 and 2/3 innings, 11.5 strikeouts per nine. 2023 was really, really great. The first half of the season with Miami, or with the Mets, not quite as great with the Marlins, but still a 3.03 ERA, 62 games, 65 and a third innings, 10.7 Ks per nine. Solid reliever. This year with the Rangers, in exactly 3 ERA, 68 games, 72 innings, 12.5 Ks per nine. It was much better with the strikeouts. This year was honestly pretty close in terms of strikeout rate and being neck and neck with Kirby Yates. But Robertson, you know exactly what you're getting every single year. What that is a really, really solid back-end reliever. Could be your closer. If that's your closer, totally good bullpen. Totally fine. There's plenty of other guys who could fill in those roles, but with Robertson, there's not that much mystery. He's going to be 40, so he is even older than you might think. He's been in the big leagues a long, long time, spent several seasons as a teammate with Mariano Rivera, who taught him how to throw that cutter from 2008 to 2013. First, 5-6 years of his career, he was a teammate with Mariano Rivera, so he wasn't getting quite as many closer opportunities. He also throws a cutter. He's also going to be 40. What Mariano Rivera did in his age 40 season, a 1.80 ERA in 61 games, also ended up with 33 saves for those 2010 Yankees, which the Rangers beat in the ALCS that year. Now, I don't think that David Robertson is going to have a 1.8 ERA. He's not Mariano Rivera, but there's not that many guys who have also pitched into their late 30s very successfully, being primarily cutter heavy, being teammates for several seasons, and also coming up through the New York Yankees farm system. Robertson has pitched for, I believe, 8 more teams than Mariano Rivera did. Let's see: Yankees, White Sox, Phillies, Rangers, Mets, Cubs, Marlins, Rays. Let's see, that's 8 teams, so 7 more than Mariano Rivera. But still, this guy, you know exactly what you're getting day in, day out. He is fantastic against left-handed batters. Righties were weirdly a little bit better against him this year, pretty significantly better. He was murderous on lefties, twice that he did it. Those 3 straight MVPs that he faced of Betts, Freeman, and also Shohei Ohtani, striking them out right in a row. He did that twice when the Rangers were in LA. That was one of the more delightful moments of the season. One of the things that Robertson did well that Kirby Yates didn't really do was pitch multiple innings. He did that several times, and he was pretty effective while doing it. He also was able to pitch on 0 days rest more often. He did that 14 times this year, pitched on 1 day rest 18 times, 2 days rest 17 times. And it was very effective in pretty much all of those different stints. I mean, a 2.8 ERA on 0 days rest and 14 games, that's really solid. That is really solid stuff. That's something the Rangers couldn't quite do with Yates. They really couldn't throw him back-to-back games that much. The Rangers unfortunately didn't need to because there weren't that many back-to-back save opportunities because the Rangers just weren't that good this year. And if the Rangers are winning at the level they're hoping to next year, they're probably going to have a few more back-to-back save situation opportunities. Robertson, I feel more comfortable, could do that more frequently, could pitch in more games. He pitched in more innings than Yates this year. Yates pitched, 61 and 2/3 innings this year. Robertson pitched more than 10 more innings than him this year, and 7 more games as well. Robertson is a guy who, again, you don't see this kind of consistency amongst relievers. He might not be, the same upside, the same ceiling as Yates, but he's not going to stink. You feel very confident in saying that. And for a guy who's going to be a 40-year-old saying, I feel a reliever, I say I feel more confident that he is going to be absolutely worth the money, even if it is $11 million. Rangers paid him $11.5 million this year. I mean, looking at the market of the deals that guys have already signed, Blake Trinan is the only, Kimi Garcia also signed a multi-year deal, 2 years, $15 million. Blake Trinan signed 2 years, $22 million. Trinan's coming off of, a couple of years where he's just been kind of in the injury wilderness. He looked fantastic in the playoffs with the Dodgers. I think that's more of a Dodgers-only situation that he got 2 years as a nearly 36-and-a-half-year-old. I think he's going to be heading into his age 37 season next year. I don't anticipate 40-year-old David Robertson getting a multi-year deal. He did have technically a multi-year deal with the Rangers this year in that he had a mutual option for 2025, which he ended up not taking. If he did take that, then this whole exercise would be a pretty moot point. It seemed like Robertson would end up being the one they chose, but now it's a question. They've talked a lot more. I've heard rumblings a lot more about bringing Yates back versus bringing Robertson back. But even though, Robertson doesn't have that insane upside, he was still so darn good this year. He was so incredibly good, even as the Rangers setup man. The amount of different situations that he pitched in, the amount of stressful situations that he pitched in. I mean, heck, if not for honestly for both of these guys, the Rangers would have a significantly worse record this season. I mean, they still finished 78-84. Their Pythagorean record had them 3 losses worse than that. And I think a lot of that has to do with both of these guys. But it's time to make a decision. It's time to get down to brass tacks. Which one of these guys should the Rangers bring back? I'm going to make my choice right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Right now, they've got win totals up for the 2025 regular season. The Rangers are at 85.5 wins over under. Interesting win total, especially since they have them 2 wins better than the Mariners, who are at 83.5 wins. Right now, they are not that far behind the Astros at 87.5 wins. Angels at 71.5 wins, and the Oakland A's at 70.5 wins, which made it interesting that the Rangers have better over-under odds on more wins than the Seattle Mariners, but worse odds to win the AL West than the Seattle Mariners. So go check out all the action at FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, we'll be back and talking about the World Series documentary, what they got right, how good it feels to relive that 2023 World Series championship. But enough fuffing about, enough blustering, enough of me postponing things. I got to make a choice between one of these two, and the Rangers probably have to make a choice between one of these two. And I got to say, this is a tough choice. And going into this, before I did my research, I honestly wasn't sure which one of these I would lean more towards bringing back. I mean, I loved Kirby Yates' time here. I loved, honestly, making a lot of really crappy Kirby photoshops. That was one of the main reasons that I loved Yates being here. But Robertson was so good, too. And having 2 elite back-end bullpen guys, you just trusted. If the Rangers had the lead heading into the 8th inning, you felt pretty confident the Rangers were going to win. And after all of the mess that was the 2023 regular season bullpen, it felt like a really nice change of pace. But between these two, I'm still torn. I still don't know. Part of me wants to just cop out and say, well, the Rangers have about $25 million to spend, and you have the projections for Yates at $14 million and Robertson at $11 million. You put those two together, and that's $25 million. So just pick both. But that's possible. But then the Rangers, third best leverage reliever would be Jacob Webb. And outside of that, there would be, you'd be relying on one of those rookies in Mark Church or maybe Teodo, or a lot more on Jacob Latz, or a lot more on Walter Pennington. And I feel like the Rangers would just have to make more of a swing than just picking both these guys and everybody else is internal. I think I'm leaning more towards Kirby Yates. No, I'm leaning more towards David Robertson. Nope. Yates. That's it. Kirby Yates. It is just such a tough decision, but Yates, the upside was just too high. I know he will probably cost, $3 to $4, maybe even $5 million more than David Robertson, but just that tantalizing peak of having a closer who was just so unhittable. I mean, the fact that he had 7 wins as a closer and only 2 losses, And he was great in save situations. He was great in tie games. He was unhittable in extra innings. I mean, both these guys were sensational in extra innings. I don't think either of them allowed a single earned run in extra innings. The Rangers were maybe not undefeated, but had a fantastic record in extra innings games because they had these two guys locking it down at the back end of this bullpen. But Yates was just so unbelievably good, so unbelievably consistent. I mean, it doesn't matter if it was righties, it was lefties. It didn't matter if it was guys who hit for power, guys who were more contact guys. It really didn't matter. The only way you were getting on Bates versus Kirby Yates last year was pretty much just via a walk. I mean, the actual batting average against that he had, it was just obscene. His whip was .827. I mean, he had 4 base runners per 5 innings. Base runners at all. And, I mean, 3.4 hits per 9, 0.4 home runs per 9. He was just unreal. He didn't allow a single home run until July. And you just look at every single month that Kirby Yates had last year. They were all fantastic. You can't quite say the same thing about David Robertson. I mean, his ERA in April and March, 0. His ERA in May, the highest ERA, mind you, he had all season, 2.16 in 9 games in May. Then 113 in June, 180 in July, 193 in August. And in September, he pitched in 10 games. He didn't allow a single earned run. Not a single one in 10 games when the Rangers were already out of it. But Yates was just so unspeakably good last year. I mean, if he's anywhere near that, not that I'm anticipating he'll go and do that exact thing if the Rangers sign him, and to the point where I'm honestly considering if the Rangers might give him a 2-year deal. I mean, with Treinen getting that deal, 2 years, $22 million with the Dodgers, I know that Yates is a lot older than Treinen, but Treinen also has a checkered injury history as well. But when he's on his game, he's one of the best relievers in baseball. The same thing can be said about Kirby Yates, except Kirby Yates was at the best of his game and was, maybe I'd trust him even more than Emmanuel Clase in a playoff game. Now, maybe that's revisionist history, but if the Rangers go to playoffs in 2025 and they have Kirby Yates as their closer, that will make me feel so much better about the whole experience, even in 2023. Not to mention the Rangers already won it all, and that whole thing is gone. All those anxieties of maybe the Rangers never win it all is gone. But having closers that you feel good about, and shout out Jose Clerk for turning into one of those in the month of October in 2023. The best baseball he's ever played in his life came at the most important time. Same with Josh Sborz as well. Both those guys just turning into the best versions that we've ever seen of them by a million miles. But Yates, we've already seen that. We've already seen him do that in the regular season. We've seen him do it in leverage situations. We've just seen him be so incredibly good this past year that, maybe the Rangers do hand him a 2-year deal. Maybe that does take the AAV down, and they could find a way to bring back both Yates and Robertson and also make some under-the-radar signings for the bullpen to kind of fill that out a little bit better with proven major leaguers than a bunch of rookies who could be great, but also could be not at all ready. I really think that one of these guys has to be back. One of these guys, if not some other really great reliever on this market, I don't think the Rangers will be players in the Tanner Scott sweepstakes, which I am more than fine with. I'm totally fine with that. And if they don't bring back either of these guys, maybe you just piecemeal together by signing 3 or 4 pretty good relievers that maybe 2 of them work out and they're solid. I think Chris Martin would be a guy I would want the Rangers to kick the tires on. Keaton Middleton missed all of this past year, but he was a guy who I looked at last year. The Rangers got as the Rangers potentially signing him. Maybe a reunion with Luke Jackson, or maybe bring back Will Smith and try and continue the Will Smith World Series run. Who knows? But I do know that if the Rangers had just one of these guys to pick from, Kirby Yates and David Robertson, I think I'm leaning Kirby Yates, at least for right now. Maybe ask for me tomorrow and I'll flip-flop the other way. But both of these guys were so darn good, and it was honestly one of the most frustrating parts of last season. The Rangers having 2 absolutely elite lockdown relievers, and not enough games for them to, rack up those saves, rack up those holds, and, for it to actually matter and see them, pitching lights out in a playoff game. It's like you get that kind of a season from Yates, and you're still kind of in it, but not enough in it to trade him and get massive value. Because the Rangers didn't do that, I think maybe Yates is more willing to come back. Same with Robertson. This is the first time in the last 3 seasons that he hadn't been dealt at midseason. So maybe that plays a factor. I'm sure the Rangers have already talked about bringing back Yates and trying to recruit him and get him to sign with the Texas Rangers yet again. Hopefully having yet another amazing season, but hopefully an all-star and elite dominant relief season that ends with him pitching in the final game of the season. Maybe Game 7 of the World Series. But that's going to do it for today's show. I'll be back tomorrow talking about that World Series documentary and be back with another show on Friday. Not entirely sure exactly what I'm going to talk about in that one, but probably not as much talk about Yates and Robertson. That'll do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.